So exciting.
It is. It's totally exciting.
Any second it's going to go on air.
It's just, we're there.
And we're live. We're live in every time zone on the planet.
We just don't know which ones we're at.
I think we actually advertise this as being at any given time, and depending on where you are on Earth, the times we posted may or may not have been accurate.
Right.
But we're here. So that's what happens when worlds collide, right?
Yeah, worlds collide. There's no telling what's going to happen. It's a brave new world, Pincus.
It really is. Cats are living with dogs.
That's right.
We're out of control.
Yep.
So, all right, I'm looking. So I have pulled up some of the online commentary, because what we wanted to talk about was we've been teasing this idea of the Worlds Collide video series for like, what, 4 or 5 months now, it seems like. And we finally released them about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. We released the first couple. Had 2 more go out last week. Had another one go out yesterday. And the feedback I've been hearing has been like 95% awesome and 5% it's the internet. What are you going to get?
Right.
What have you been hearing?
Well, I think a lot of people are going to have a struggle, not necessarily from my side, but from your side. You know, you having been from the defense side of this thing, the whole fact that you're willing to, you know, consider even doing this with me, someone like me who's fundamentally a competition shooter, I think that that's a shocker for the tactical, you know, home ninjas, because they struggle a little bit to believe that we can get along, and I think what they don't understand is, while you come in off this door, I come in off of this door, a lot of the information, even though we might explain it differently, it's exactly the same thing, Rob. I mean,
I think that's it. I think you're right. I think it's a lot in the explanation. I think, especially at the fundamental level, like at the base level, when we're talking about things, it really is so core and foundational, the principles that underlie, whether you do one drill, I do another drill, you use one piece of gear, I use another piece of gear, at base level, and then ultimately in the application. And that's one thing I think a lot of people don't give you enough credit for, is that you get the idea of the application in the defensive context being different from that in the choreographed sort of like, I'm going to take every advantage, I know exactly where the targets are, competition environment. And it's funny because I've gotten nothing but awesome from a lot of like the regular people that follow the audience, the audience of the Personal Defense Network or the ICE training company, all the social media. And it's actually been, I've seen some of the competition guys sort of challenging, like, well, why are you, you know, hanging out with the great one? You know, he's doing something so far beyond what you defensive shooters do. So I've seen some of that static out there too. And I think both sides, whether it's the defensive side that don't understand the value that you and anybody else who shoots professionally for a living brings, or the guys that don't get how we're not after grandmaster, world class, whatever the classifiers are. Like, that's not, we're after fundamental, applicable defensive shooting skills that can be applied in the home, around the workplace, in the public space, and it's just a different set of goals, I think. Right,
and I think you nail it right there. Is that the people always want to take sides, and I guess I'm like that too in many instances. But in reality, I think one of the reasons I've had a lot of success in various aspects of this training for me, I do a lot of military, you know, and I do a lot of high-end military, and I do a lot of training that you would have to call it tactical and or fundamental practical shooting skills training, simply because of the groups that are asking for the training. And you know, when we did those videos, Rob, I didn't really know what to expect. You probably didn't know what to expect from me, but I've been around long enough. We've both been around a while to realize when a competition shooter looks at it, few of them really have an understanding of the fundamental techniques anyway, because a lot of the competition shooters got into the game for the sake of playing a game. They don't see the guns and the events and the skills as any different than playing a video game, right? So you got that side. That's just the complete opposite of the guy that says, well, you know, when you're playing your game, Leatham, and you're taking every single advantage, I think the words you used, that doesn't have an application to me. And then the competitioners say, like, well, I don't care about surviving the gunfight. That's not the concept for here. I'm playing a game. What they don't realize is the common ground in the middle, and I think a term you and I probably could agree on, even though we might explain it differently, is acceptable accuracy. Right. I mean, this is a term that I have fought, not fought, but I've tried to push this through in the training, whether it's a competition shooter who I'm teaching to shoot Yankee and I need you to be able to hit an 8-inch circle at 25 yards every time, or I'm teaching somebody applicable skills, which is in a house clearing environment, you might have, what, 10 or 12 yards might be a pretty long shot, right?
For sure.
So the minute of accuracy required is the same. Now, if you're playing the game, we're always about the score. And if you're in it for the fight, you're in it about surviving the fight and winning the fight. So we have more in common than we want to believe. But when you get to the middle ground, I mean, when we were doing the piece, I don't remember what you called it, Rob, where we were walking the circle. I might jump ahead. Should I not be talking about this? Is this a further?
No, just wait till you see, folks in internet land, wait till you see the figure 8 drill, Rob Leatham's performance in the much discussed figure 8 drill.
Performance. That's a curious way of saying it. But that same thing, you know, is a close variation of something that I've used. And when we did, I think the one released, did we release on just a couple days ago, right? What do you call it?
The dynamic deviation control. Yeah, but that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to sort of talk about the ones we released. So go ahead, because I think that was the first time you saw that drill. Was that day when we taped it.
That's right. I've never seen anything like that in my life, and it's curious because it was kind of a shock, and I think it even shows. I watched the vid when they released it, and the shock is, oh my God, I'm making myself move. Now, see, when I teach people to shoot moving targets, I generally am teaching them to move their bodies around, and I realize, I mean, that was an eye-opening moment for me, Rob, because I tell people all the time, quit waiting for this potential perfect sight picture to occur. That can't happen. It's never going to happen. For the competition shooter, if you're waiting for the perfect sight picture before you're willing to let that round fly, you're too slow. And I think that there's an applicable standard there for the competition world. So when you're having me draw the pictures or do the movement of the gun on the target, for me that was a huge eye-opener, because at that moment I realized that's all I ever do. That's all I've ever done. I just never put it in words the way you did.
Well, I think that's a big part of it. A lot of guys, they'll say, well, you know, wow, you dynamic deviation control. And one of the comments on your internet was, well, you're making that awfully complicated. How about just say, do what you need to do? And the problem is a lot of guys, especially at the higher end, you guys are like naturals, you're like Olympic level master awesomenesses that practice. You know, how many rounds have you shot so far this year?
I shot 400 today.
Yes, and that's a light day, right?
Yeah, that was a light day because it was hot.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, you might just be doing something and not really know what you're doing. So people say, well, just tell guys to go do what they do and they'll be fine. It's like, well, no, we can't do that. And especially when we're trying to educate through video, trying to educate through books and articles, you got to break it down and give people reasons and intellectual concepts, I think, that get them invested in the drills. You know, that drill, I think, and it didn't make the edit, but I think we talked about it that day. That drill was originally showed to me that idea of moving the gun around on purpose by Ken Hackathorn as a precursor to a, you know, walking towards a target and walking away from the target type drill. And I don't teach those as tactics, like slow walking towards or away, but the idea of finding a way to get people to understand that you can't make it so that you want the gun to go off at some imaginary perfection nanosecond. It's just got to be good enough, and let the gun go off anytime now. And we also use that drill to teach smooth trigger press, to teach people to smooth out that trigger press so that they're not obsessing over trying to shoot when we do practice those headshots at 20 yards. Again, if people are waiting for the perfect moment, staging the trigger, holding it right at the wall, they're going to screw it up.
They can't pull the trigger. And it's funny, you really nail it right there. When I'm teaching people to pull the trigger, I'm like, listen, don't wait for this perfect trigger. Don't wait for this perfect sight picture to happen. It just doesn't occur in a speed shoot environment. And I'm going to use competition as my mode for explaining it. We shoot a standardized drill. It's been around since the dawn time, like an El Presidente, 3 targets, you turn, go 2-2-2, reload 2-2-2. The speed element of that is dramatically more important than the accuracy element of it until you miss the target.
Right.
So the key factor is, yeah, I'd like to shoot A's, but I'm going to take some C's, and I hope if I shoot a bad one, it's a D, but you can't miss and you're going to lose. There's so many things about that is so applicable to the real world. It's kind of the same thing. So I fight students when I have them do shooting on the move. We move towards targets, backwards from targets, and we walk the circle thing around to try to get them to become active. The first thing that you'll see is a student will simply be unable to pull the trigger, Rob. They can't pull the trigger because every bit of training they've ever had is it's got to be steady, it's got to be clear, and I can't make that happen, so I can't fire the gun. And one of my terms I'll say in a class is there are more bad shots fired from people aiming than anything else.
Yeah, trying way too hard, obsessing over trying to get that perfect, magazine, perfect front sight focus, blurry target, blurry rear sight, and right in the middle. And so some guys say, well, hey, why don't you just get a moving target? And logistically, you and I know we can't just assume we're going to have magic moving targets at every range we go to, nor can everybody who's watching these videos. But the problem is if you have a moving target and you superimpose your perfect sight picture on the front, you're not getting the point. You may be learning, you may be developing confidence, but you're really reinforcing the same bad habit on a moving target now.
Well, what happens when we practice a mover, and I see this all the time, the first trick to shooting a mover in competition is seeing if there's a place where the target's not moving.
Right.
And shoot it there. So if you have a target that comes out and goes like this and comes back, the trick isn't to shoot it on the move. The trick is to go bang, bang, and shoot it right there. So that's not really a shoot and moving. Anyway, it's a timing shot. So it's a different thing. When you shoot a real moving target, like Bianchi, for instance, it's to make it competition equal for everybody. It's absolutely predictable in its movement, meaning it exactly the same speed. So we actually sit back there with our calculators and figure out the lead.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong. Like that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get a better score. But guys that don't understand the nuance of that, how that changes when you have erratic, unpredictable movement. I remember. I mean, the example I would use would be like the springing teal on a sporting clays field. Just shoot it at the apex when it's going to be in the inside of that pattern for the longest, and the difference is huge. Now, one of the areas that you got me thinking was in the video that was released about a week ago with the new shooter fundamentals. And we stood out in the range. Now, years ago, of course, we've all probably seen all these things 20 times, and sometimes it takes the 20th time to see it and have somebody explain it in a way that makes sense to get it to click. I've always been very resistant because I emphasize and focus so much on applied skill development, contextually reality-based skill development. I've always been hesitant to do a lot of dry fire on the live range or to have people shoot the berm just to get used to recoil, those kinds of things. Let's learn to run. If you're going to run, let's learn to run and not worry about this crawling stuff. But you, in this new shooter fundamentals video, talk about how you really emphasize the idea of no ammo, not even in a shooting position, just anywhere you're holding a gun, learn to hold the gun still while you're pressing the trigger. Now, talk to us about that, because that was the way you explained it has me rethinking how I might work with some new shooters, especially at the lowest end.
So unfortunately I'm not great on my memory, Rob. So I won't remember what we talked about 5 minutes ago. But when I take a new shooter, this is the first thing I teach them how to do. I'm not pointing the gun. I'm pointing the gun at the sky because I don't want to point it at the camera. I teach them to do this. This is what I want them to learn how to do. Okay, that's the first thing I need them to know how to do, because until they can fire the gun without moving anything, it doesn't matter. So that's what the first thing I want to do. Then I teach them a little bit about the grip. All right. Then I have them point the gun at the target and look over it. And then what I'm doing at that point is checking to see if the guy's scared of the gun going off. If he's not scared of the gun and immediately can just fire the gun, at that point I will bother teaching him about aiming. But only at that point, because if he can't fire the gun without moving it, and he can't hold the gun still enough and motionless enough to keep it pointed at a target, I don't really care if you can aim or not. I think aiming is pointless until that point occurs.
And I think that when I hear you explain it again, and this is where I'm not sure that we're doing something very much different. We do teach the grip. We get people into a natural stance. We tell them to look at the target. We tell them to drive that gun out in parallel with their line of sight, and then have them press the trigger smoothly. So we call it extend, touch, press. We have them extend it. We know their grip is decent. Their body was we have them touch the trigger. And if the gun hasn't moved yet, then we tell them slowly, smoothly press, and we watch for the gun to move. And obviously, if the gun doesn't move much, and they're 12 feet away from the chest target, they're going to hit. Then
Every time.
Maybe, then with multiple shots, 20 minutes later, we may get to the part where we teach them about sight alignment, sight picture, because we're going to make the target harder to hit, change the range, change the size, and now they need their sights. But you're actually taking a step back even before you get them into a shooting position and have them pull the trigger just to isolate gun movement. And I can see where there's definitely a percentage of people at the beginning end that would benefit from that. And it's something we're going to be talking about with our defensive firearms coaches as kind of, experiment with it, maybe new approach in our program, or use it as a remedial. If you have somebody that's doing extend touch breast drill and can't keep it in there, I'll bet 30 seconds with your drill is going to fix that. And it's just a question of, for us, how much percentage of our audience is really benefiting from that. All of them do it, and how much time does it take? So it may be something you see in our programs because of this Worlds Collide video situation.
You know, it's probably its biggest value is if I hand the gun to somebody and say, listen, keep it pointed that way, I'm going to cycle slide for you so they don't have to, and you can click it. Or if they're shooting double action gun, just keep pulling the trigger. If they do it correctly, we don't beat a dead horse. It's like move on to the next thing. But as soon as, here's the shooter I get every time. My sights are right where I want it to be, but when I shoot, that shot is nowhere near. I said, well, then you're moving the gun. But they're like, they don't understand that concept. I said, you're moving the gun when you shoot. This is what everybody does, by the way. It's not the beginner, it's everybody. I do it too. And at that point, they're like, well, we got to teach you how to fire the gun without moving it. So I says, close your eyes. Quit worrying about this, and this is for everybody else watching. So I'll pull the trigger, and every time, Rob, they're going to make that movement right there. It's unrelated to the trigger pull. It's related to the fact that they know this creates a noise and a bang and a movement that they have to control, so then they control recoil with it. So when you point it out, everybody goes like, oh my gosh, he's not even firing the gun. They get dry fire, not even firing the gun, and he does it. But you got to make him do it fast. If you have him sit there and let him think, you know, like a traditional bullseye trigger like that, and pull the trigger slow, it doesn't matter. That's a shot we never get to use. I don't get to use it in competition, and you don't get to use it in a gunfight. It's got to happen in a, what's a slow trigger pull for us? You figure a second? You know, so what's a fast one? A quarter of a second? A tenth of a second? So it's got to happen in the right time. But I think your explanation of how you, what did you just call it? You drive the gun, what was your...
The extend touch press drill.
I would agree with just hearing the words and the way you say it. That happens in the right order for me. That happens in the right order, and nowhere in there did you complicate the whole process by telling the person that the whole process of doing what you just told them to do is to gain this sight picture. It drives me freaking crazy. You're not getting. You're getting alignment on the target and putting yourself in a position to control a gun so you can fire it rapidly and repeatedly if you need to. The whole goal isn't to find a sight picture. That's stupid, and that's why I think the way you say it is right on point. And that works when I see a master class shooter in competition and they start having problems. Rob, it's timing. They're pulling the gun out of alignment. And then we go to that remedial piece, and I say, hey, unload your gun. Say, you know, put the sights on the target. Everything look good to you. Get on. You ready to fire? When I pull the trigger, or when I hit the buzzer, I want you to pull the trigger as quick as you can. And every time they make that little jab motion with their hand, and they go, oh, crap, I'm moving my hands. Not the trigger. They're moving their hands. And I think that's the same thing you're going to. And I like
And so that's what we want to emphasize is just getting that gun in the right place and keeping it in the right place. Again, combining it with dynamic deviation control well enough.
You should write down. You should write down what you just said, whatever those words were. Anybody watching this thing, if you heard,
write that down.
Whatever Pincus, the words he just said was get the gun in the right. What was? How'd you say it? Do you remember?
I don't remember. Neither one of us. This is why they have the rewind button.
I think it was.
I don't know.
I think it was you.
This is what frustrates guys in the instructor development school. They're like, can you say that again? And I'm like, no. The concepts will be there.
So,
make the, point the gun, do the thing.
Target, and then pull the trigger, and without moving the gun, it's just.
Sounds so easy. We should do that. Okay, now let's go back. So the first videos that launched it was interesting. I think we talked about this with a lot of people, the guys at Springfield, guys at PDN, everybody. You and I put in our votes. And I kind of lost track. Somebody decided here's the way we're releasing these, and I really liked that the first two videos we did really weren't skill development. We didn't start at zero. We just kind of jumped into the middle and said, here's what we're doing. We talked about the difference between competition and defense, which we addressed a little bit here. And then we went right to inside the pants or outside the pants carry. And a lot of people were really, I think, interested in the fact that you carry appendix, I carry appendix, but we're not exactly the same build.
No. If you look at any of the wide shots of us in the videos, there's probably two of you and me. Just in girth. Because I weigh in at a very, very svelte. 270, and you probably don't. You probably are a little lighter than that.
But you're taller, so.
Oh, that's yeah. So there's another 100 pounds in just the height difference. Is that what you're trying to say? I appreciate it.
about 100
I
pounds.
appreciate you trying to save that for me, but I accept that my status in life is I will never be buying at the skinny person store, you know, where you're going to go. So it's
that's actually where I'm going to go in there later. Skinny person. That's where I get my jeans.
Yeah, I go to that other one. I go to Melon's Big and Tall. You know, no, what do you call it? Rodney Danger called Melon's Big and Fat in
Big and Fat.
Big and Fat. I think that's what it was. But I think people like to argue about things.
Yeah.
And I think they like to get on and discuss the pros and cons. And how I carry the gun is really an issue of how I can carry the gun. And I'm not going to force myself to do it in a way I don't want to or can't do it. I think some people very much want to associate with a method of using, and I'll tell you what, I've seen quite a few videos of people doing absolutely fantastic fast draws with various appendix position holsters. But it also looked really close. And Rob, do you realize there's a whole level of competition level crap that's occurring for the consumer market right now? I'm looking at that guy going like, wait a minute, that's technically concealed because I can't see the gun.
You called it conscientious concealment, I think.
Yeah.
Just to make you feel good, I'm going to throw a shirt over it.
You're right. I watched one the other day, and the guy's doing it, and he's fast. I don't even know who it was. I mean, it was blazing fast. But there's gap between the gun and his body when he pulls his shirt up. So there's the gun hanging out. I'm like,
right.
Well,
it's like the guys I see doing the videos that do like 3-5 reloads in a second. Well, they drop a mag and throw. I don't even understand what that is. What are you doing? And why are you doing it? And why is it important? And why am I watching? I just lost 5 seconds of my life.
Well, here's what's it's fun to watch the level of skill that they've developed. It's truly an amazing skill. It's an amazing performance. It's exactly like the guy that walks the tightrope between the Sears Towers, right? Or the guy who did Amazing Willenda.
Yeah, or like the 6-year-old girl with the foam nunchucker, like that.
Right, yeah.
Foam nunchucks, like she's amazing.
It is.
But she's not gonna like go like beat up bullies. Like that's not her job. Her job is to entertain and do cool things on the mat. And I don't know why this is different in our world. Just because it's gun. Right.
I think for some reason we think anything to do with the gun is realistic and practical and therefore valid. And I'm like, wait a minute. 2/3 of the equipment I use in competition and 9/10 of the preparation I do for an event is so impractical that it is nothing more than racing, right? Now, the skills that I've developed, if applied in another manner, I think have, like someone who developed a great amount of strength to learn how to pick up cars, even though you probably don't need somebody to pick up your car, strong guy could probably use that tool somewhere else. And my shooting skills probably could be used in another manner too. I just happen to like competition shooting, and I'm good at it, and so that's why I do it. But there's so much confusion amongst the people out there that confuse the fact that we aren't confused about what we're doing. I in no way am confused about the fact that what I'm doing in that competition is playing a game and trying to get a score. It's the old, if you practice shooting competition, it's gonna get you killed on the street. Well, I don't know why you would try to shoot in a real shooting world the way you couldn't actually, because I get to practice the stage. I get to walk it. I can count the steps. Rob, we count steps from one position to another direction to see which way is shorter and faster. So it's
right. You know which foot's going to be forward on the fourth position.
Every time.
Start, right?
Before I ever go. Now the skill I've learned is the ability to be able to figure out how to do something really well. But I can tell you what I never think about in a shooting course of fire is shooting. I am never thinking about shooting. Those people that watch us shoot, or the competition shooter, a high-level competition shooter, thinks that they're doing the same things that guy they're watching on the screen is doing the same thing I'm doing. He's running that position. He's getting a clear sight picture. He's squeezing the trigger. That's not what's happening. I'm thinking about the dance. You know why? Because I don't have to think about the shooting. That crap is as natural to me as eating a pizza. You know what I mean? It's eating a donut. I don't have to work.
I know. I've seen you eat a donut. I've seen that.
You've seen it happen. It's magical.
Yeah, and it's fast.
Oh yeah. Well, I like everything in my life, I don't see any reason to drag it out.
No point. Not everyone appreciates that, but I understand what you're saying. So here's the question. So for me, I think I'm looking forward to, we're going to do one video about a week every week now. So this is going to last another probably, I think, 8 to 10 weeks with what we taped already. We just set another date. We're going to get together and do some more work. And what I'd like to do is, now people have kind of got a feel for this. They're going to get more feel for it between now and when we tape. I want people watching this video, hit us up on our social media, hit Personal Defense Network, make a comment at the SpringfieldArmory.com blog, and let us know what you want to see. Like, what topics do you want us to address? Maybe there's some defensive tactical technique or piece of gear that you see me use or you've seen somebody use. You want to get Rob's opinion on it. Maybe there's a drill that you guys have seen Rob or competition shooters do for skill development, or a course of fire you saw one time that you thought was realistic and you want to get my input on it, or what would I do to help prepare for that? I don't know. Like, I'm just curious now that there is an audience for the Worlds Collide video, what do you guys want to see? That's what I'm really curious about.
Yeah, me too. I would love to see what, you and I can sit there, you know how hard it is to pull the string on us. You put a camera up there and say, okay, talk about something. And while we don't have any idea what we're going to talk about once we start, we've never really had a difficulty. When we did those segments, I don't remember really having any guidelines for all these pieces when we did them. I think it just came out of a mutual, well, what do you think about this and how do you look at this? And I think we probably both went into that from a little bit of a hesitant standpoint, like, Pincus isn't going to like what I do. Pincus is not going to like the fact that all I care about is the score, but I'm really more than that. And I'm sure you're going like, oh, Rob's not only a competition shooter, he's not going to like the fact that I'm doing this for the sake of defensive skills. And I think it just didn't go that way. So I think you're right. People watching this right now, they probably go, okay, well, I've always wondered about item X or this technique or this drill. And I don't know how you are about drills. I make up drills on the spot to get the student to work on a skill that I want to improve. So I'm not really the king. I have a few standardized drills, but it really adjusts. I'll give you one of my standardized drills. This is called All You Can Get, and you do it at whatever distance and whatever time is suitable for the student. For the competition shooters, we do it at 15 yards, and you get 3 seconds. And in that time frame, you're going to draw and shoot as many points on the target, not as many hits as you can get. As many points on the target. So let's say you draw and shoot 3 shots in the A zone. You're going to get 15 points for that by IPSC scoring, right? If I draw and shoot 4 shots with a major caliber gun in the C zone, I'm going to get 4 fours. I'm going to get 16 points for that. So that's better to be less accurate and be a little bit faster. And the game is to figure out, the point of the drill is to figure out how fast is too inaccurate, and it's all based on how you score it. If you put a steel target out there, and say, and the other version of the drill is we'll shoot it on a 12-inch plate. It's a little tough to shoot it at 15. So we'll shoot it at 7 to 10 yards, and I'm going to give you, this is one of my favorite old-time drills. You'll shoot a lot, though. I'm going to give you 10 seconds, Rob, and I want you to hit that target as many times as you can. You're going to do 2 runs through. The first run is, I'm just going to count how many hits you have. And the second run is as soon as you miss, you stop. And you add the 2 numbers together. And I would bet that you'll shoot, depending on which gun you shoot, if you shot a higher cap gun, you'd probably shoot 20 hits on the first one, and I'll bet you have the discipline that the second time that you would shoot 10 or 12 hits. The most common thing is the guy hears the, shoot all he want, and they never develop the discipline to hit the target. So the first time through, they'll go through with an open gun, which holds 30 rounds, and they'll shoot 30 shots at that target, Rob, and they'll get 20 hits. But they missed their second shot, but I don't penalize them for that yet. Now the second string of fire, and you add the 2 scores together. Then now do this again, but think about the rules, dude. If you miss the target, we stop counting. And they draw and miss their first shot. So it's an issue of gaining a certain level of control. And you can adapt these to times, to distances, to anything you want. Those are just a couple of variations I use of. And I've already stolen from you this gun movement thing. Now, I probably don't explain it the same way as you do simply because we're so different, but I think conceptually what I'm telling the person to do is move the gun all over the target. I mean, I'm not necessarily trying to get them to just draw a circle or something, Rob. I want them to move all over the target, and I'm telling you, any hit's a hit. You all right?
Yep. No, I like it. I mean, I stole the drill from Hackathorn and put it, into my words and for our purposes. So same kind of idea. And what we'll do is, we didn't do it in the video, but we'll have people write their names. We'll have people do a star, draw a giraffe. I don't care. Just get their head off the trigger press, get their head off of sight picture. And move.
That's the point.
But your drill, so that drill is beautiful. It's a concept in CFS world we call perceived penalty for a miss, because so often in training we only worried about doing what we have to do to get the hits. We don't worry about what happens if you miss. Obviously, in defensive world, that's huge, right? Like, you've got this, we all this free killers week. If you're in that crowded room, you're in that theater, you're in that mall, you can't afford to miss. So your second half of the drill really draws home to people that, you may be trying to go as fast as you can, and you might be a little overconfident, and you don't think it matters because the paper or the cardboard hole is an inch away. But when that inch away is somebody else's face, when you miss that steel target, it doesn't ring and you stop. So we call it volume of fire, right? What is the fastest pace at which you can maintain 100% accuracy on the target you need to hit? And that drill that you just talked about fits right into CFS world. But if you don't understand the underlying concepts, it doesn't look like anything we do, because we don't do that drill. But like you said, it's a drill that any one of our instructors could run and explain in the context of defensive shooting. You're doing it differently for different purposes. And that's why this worlds collide thing is much more about, I think, showing the overlap and not some mutual destruction event, right?
Well, and that's the thing I've learned when we did that first segment of videos, is that they're coming from different directions. We're still way more similar than we are different. This whole accuracy thing, what's acceptable level of accuracy in a class, without getting in the instructional phase. I always say, listen, there's 3 elements that could create difficulty of a shot. One is distance, one is size of the target, and the third one is penalty for missing the target. In the competition world, if we miss and don't get the hit, there's a penalty for that. If you miss and shoot a no-shoot target, there's a greater penalty for that. In the real world, that element of missing, there's sometimes you can't shoot.
Right.
I mean, the difficulty of the shot is so great, if you can't make it, you don't gamble. I'll gamble in the competition world every time, because I can't win if I don't gamble. But you have to teach them a level of discipline and control that will create a clear picture of where their skill level is at. And you say, okay, now that you recognize where you're at and you understand you can't hit that target every time you want. See, a lot of people think if they slow down, they can make every shot.
Yeah,
and it's not true.
I'm carrying this 4-inch XDS. There are plenty of situations when I know that, you take any news story out of the last month where if someone had been armed, they could have changed everything. I know there are situations where if I'd have been the other side of the nightclub or the other side of the theater, the other side of the mall, I can't do anything from 50 yards away in a crowd with this 4-inch XDS. It's not the gun, and I'm not the guy. So knowing your limits, it's one of the first things we tell people is at the end of the training today, I want you to know when pulling the gun out and pulling the trigger would make things better. And that means you got to know your limits. When is that not it? So
that's exactly the same thing for a competition shooter. Is I'm teaching them, listen, you got to know when you can make that shot, when you can't. A lot of the time and for us it's a speed element. It's usually not the shot so terribly hard, but it's a discipline to know how fast you can shoot. And okay, you can't shoot that full speed. You're going to have to back off and do that. And for years, it comes from I can't take that shot altogether. The competition shooter, you would think it'd be easy for the guy to say, okay, I need to add way more precision to make the shot. But we're always pushing to the destruction level, and there is one of the huge differences between the competition and the real world. Is I will take the chance and fail, and when I shoot the no-shoot, you know what I get? I get a 10-point penalty.
Right.
I wouldn't have taken those shots.
We were doing a thing. We were doing a thing last week with Todd Jarrett was out there coaching a bunch of us through at a press event, and Roy Huntington was out there, Rich Nance was out there, and I'm out there just blazing away, and we had to do 5 plates, run the other side, 5 plates the other way, and I'm trying to make the pickup shots as fast as I can. So I dropped one, made the pickup shot, thought my time was pretty good. Roy Huntington just kind of walks up there like Roy, confident and capable, and you can see him consciously taking a 10th off, like almost making sure he doesn't miss, knowing he's going to beat my time. Rich Nance comes up there, and Nance rolls the dice and goes for it, cleans it, beautiful, perfect. So I'll sit over here on the sidelines and let you top 2 go duke it out. I blew it, trying to be faster.
Right, but when you see that element, you recognize, see, the traditionalist person in your position is going to always back that off and say, yeah, that's great that they're doing that, but they're not doing anything that's applicable. They are for what they're trying to do. But the difference between competition and the real world is you're shooting at some steel plates with a timer telling you who won. And that's just not the whole world. That's one piece, and that's the world I come from. But I am in no way ignorant enough to believe that that's more important. That score, winning that national, winning that stage, winning that string of fire, beating your buddies, yeah, it's important to me, but it's not more important than the viewpoint you might have that if you can't make that shot, don't take that shot.
Right. No, it's huge. And you know, the competition it was a lot of fun. You know, we had a good time, but I think everybody there also recognizes that it's a game, and you know, that's one of the things that I think is really important for a lot of the people that are watching the Worlds Collide series is if you're on the competition side, just know where it applies and where it doesn't. And if you're on the defensive side, know that if you go out to the range and you go to play that game and you're having fun with it, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Don't think of it as your new training regimen. Just think of it as your fun thing you do with a gun. That's why I say go do cowboy action shooting. You can't take that seriously. Like, you just want to eat for fun. Go have fun.
Right. Yeah. Just never confuse when you're playing a game that it's not, that it is the same as learning how to fight. It's really not. It might be the technical skills might be applicable, but the mental concept is just they're so worlds apart. You know.
All right, so what do you got? What else is coming up? What should people know about you or Springfield Armory? Tell them something important to do on the internet, quick.
We've got so much stuff coming out, Rob, over the next probably 6-month period of time. I can't even talk about it. You and I have talked about some of the new stuff that's happening. You and I were getting together very soon to run a new series of things, because when we did the first ones, I'm not sure we knew what we were going to do. And I don't think we knew.
Some of them we just literally, and I like the fact that a lot of those, and I don't think you can tell on the videos, but a lot of them it was, okay, I'm not going to tell you what to do, just stand here and start the cameras. And then you'd run me through something, or I'd run you through something. It was a good time. But we're going to have a little bit more planning now because we have audience participation, so that's going to be good. And all right, so we know there's a lot of cool stuff coming out from Springfield. I'm starting the last leg of the tour. Where am I going? Utah, Nevada, California, Oregon, Washington over the next 3 weeks, and then the 2016 PDN training tour will be wrapped up.
That's a move, Rob. that's a real.
I'm sitting in Denver right now at the Western HQ, and tomorrow morning at Salt Lake City, I'm teaching at like 9 in the morning. So trust me, I'm going to get there, and then Nevada, California, Oregon, Washington. Last class of the year is with Mike Hughes, another world-class competitive shooter. I'll be up at his range with the NLT Circ guys. So. All right, well, I guess that wraps this up. I think we were an hour late or an hour early, and given an extra 8 minutes. I don't know. Time is irrelevant when worlds collide. Thanks for everything you do, dude. I'll catch up with you, and we'll talk about the next event. Worlds Collide, the next video we'll post next week. If you haven't seen the ones that are out there now, go to springfieldarmory.com, click on the blog link, or hit Big Rob or Little Rob social media, and you'll be able to find the links to everything. Let us know what you want to see in the next series of Worlds Collide video, which will be taping just at the beginning of Q3. Have a good night.
Good.